My mom died about 5 months ago. I got what was in her bank account when the inheritance was settled. It was approximately $250. My sister and her 4 kids got my mom's house and everything in it. Mom's remaining 401k went to my sister also. My sister lives with my mom. She doesn't speak to the 3 different men who fathered her children. Since this happened, I cut off my sister, who I'd always had a rocky relationship with, since she always used her kids to manipulate my mother. My sister called me and wanted my information, like my social security number, so she can put me as the beneficiary in her will, and for me if something happens to her. I said no. I enjoy my child-free life, and I don't want her kids if something happens to her. She said I was the only family she had left. I told her I didn't care. You're not using your children to manipulate me like you did to our mom. My sister yelled at me, asking what would happen to her kids if she died. I told her I guess they could live with their fathers or go into foster care. Either way, it's not my problem. I've already put distance between my sister and her kids. I'm not planning to stay in contact with her at all, and this was the first time we've spoken since the will. Am I the idiot for not wanting to take care of my sister's kids if something happens to her? She's literally having no one else because she's pushed the entire family away from her, including me. So that's why it might be mean. She was a former addict and stole from my aunt. She's cut from our cousins for various other reasons. She was a former addict and stole from my aunt. Are you 100% sure she wants your social security number and other info for beneficiary paperwork? You are not it. You don't want her anywhere near your personal information. Do not give her your social security number. It is not needed. A will just needs the name of the person who will get responsibility of your children if the worst should happen. That's what I was going to say. You don't need a social security number to add someone as a beneficiary to anything in a will. Scam alert. And FYI, OP, even if she did put in her will that she wants her children to go to you, that doesn't mean you're legally obligated to take them, especially since they have living fathers who can and should step up. Your sister wanted your social security number for nefarious purposes. You were right to cut her off. Just be prepared. There's a solid chance that she's actively using again if she's looking at identity theft right now, and you could still get called to take the kids by CPS. It would be worth having contact information for the fathers to give to the CPS workers. Why did she inherit almost all your mother's assets, while you inherited a mere $250? Did she manipulate your mom to leave her the house and the 401k? Unless you and your mom had a bad relationship, leaving you only a nearly empty bank account is BS. Contact a lawyer and see if your mom had other policies that named you as the beneficiary. Also, contact the bank to see if mom's account was emptied by anyone else shortly after her passing. Something sounds sussy here. My wife and I, 48 male, have a son, John, 26, who recently told us that he's asking his girlfriend, Cece, to marry him. We've met Cece a few times before, and she seems like a nice girl, but we have concerns about Cece's family. My wife and I own a few rental properties, and John stays in one of the properties rent-free, as he's still in grad school. My wife and I have always agreed to provide free housing for all our kids, especially while they're in school, so that they don't have to worry about rent in a high cost of living area. The concern with Cece's family comes from having met the family a couple of times before. They seem inappropriately interested in my wife and my finances, and Cece's mother, from what I've heard from my other kids and a little from John, is close to retirement, has no savings or plans set up for retirement. Her mother has multiple times attempted to move in and live rent-free in one of my properties because, according to her, it's her future son-in-law's house. My take is that Cece's mother sees John, who's about to graduate from med school, as their retirement security. John's my oldest, and I've signed a will where he gets a large amount of cash, plus the property that Cece's mother was trying to move into. I'm not sure if the mother knows that, and that's why she was trying to move in, But John knows what he's inheriting. My biggest fear is that somehow that family will end up with a piece of the house, for whatever reason, once I pass. John has a pure heart and always sees the good in people, and I think his future mother-in-law will take advantage of that. When John told me he was getting married to Cece, I requested that he sign a prenup to protect his inheritance, and also, prenups are generally advisable, but he was vehemently against it. I told him that he'd be written out of the will, and the house would go to our other kids if he married her without a prenup, but it seemed like he was not budging. So I'd gone ahead and started plans to leave the house to my other kid. I have a good reason not to trust Cece's family and their intentions with my son. I'm not going to tell a grown man who he can and can't marry, but I want to protect what I'm leaving for my children. My son stopped talking to me, and I'm unsure if I was that unreasonable. Edit. We are primarily concerned about the house. My son will be still receiving the huge chunk of cash on the will. He'll be getting something, just not the house. When my wife and I met Cece's mother, she made multiple comments about how her future son-in-law has her retirement taken care of, and she's asked us multiple times if she could move into the house to the point where it was getting inappropriate. Okay, so I think you should trust your gut, and based on the example of the future mother-in-law already pushing to live rent-free in your property, I think you're onto something, and you are not the idiot. You could do a trust and have a trustee continue to exercise control after your death, or even in your will. You could have a prenup clause. My father did that, where anyone who wants to inherit must have a prenup. I think Cece's family will move in with John and his wife as soon as they're married. And if John and Cece are okay with that, it shouldn't be a problem. If John isn't okay with that and is pressured to do so by his not quite in-laws, then sure, it's an issue. But from the sound of things, John doesn't have an issue with his in-laws. I can see where OP is coming from, but I also think there's a certain level of manipulation and control at play when Dad is saying, if you don't do what I want, I'll write you out of the will. John isn't entitled to any sort of inheritance, but trying to use it as leverage to affect his decisions is manipulative at best. But it sounds like OP is footing John's bills at that property. Maybe I'm just making a wild assumption here, but if OP has housing costs taken care of to help the kids with their bills while in school, it would stand to reason that utilities are included. If I were OP, I wouldn't want to pay any bills as part of someone else's retirement. Trust your gut. Why should you have outsiders come in and take what you've worked for? Maybe you want to leave your son a bit of cash, but nothing major that the in-laws could benefit from. It would be interesting to see how things would turn out if the girlfriend's family knew that your son was getting nothing and would not be funding their retirement. My 27 female, cousin 23 female, was diagnosed with leukemia and is not doing well. I feel terrible for her, but I was never close to her growing up. We grew up in different countries. I'm getting married in spring. My aunt came over 2 weeks ago to discuss something. She wanted me to let my cousin walk down the aisle with her dad before I walk. I don't feel comfortable with it because it's sad that she won't get to experience this, but isn't it my day to shine? My aunt says that I'm being selfish for not doing this. She spoke to my parents about this, and they don't seem too happy. My in-laws are not pleased either, but they still want me to decide. My fiance doesn't feel comfortable either. My aunt brought my cousin to my place to discuss it last week. Cousin cried, saying she wanted to walk down the aisle and that I should let her. I told her it was my wedding day, so it was unacceptable for her to take over. She then called me selfish and a bridezilla for not caring about her. We were never close, so I don't know why she's trying to do this on my wedding day. I told her I needed more time to think, so she's on Instagram posting cryptic stuff, obviously attacking me. I talked to my friends for non-biased opinions, and they were divided. Some want me to allow her to walk down the aisle because she would never experience that, and I'll be doing something nice. Am I the idiot if I say no? If she wants to walk down the aisle, why must it be at your wedding? Why can't your aunt plan a ceremony for your cousin? Not the idiot. It's an unreasonable request. You were right to turn it down. Also, I feel if you allowed her to do that, she'd show up in a wedding dress. Right? It's not her day. She doesn't get to be the center of attention. She doesn't get to do the things the bride does. And she doesn't get to try and guilt trip you for saying no. I'd be fully prepared for her to wear white to the wedding, or for her to try and spill something on your dress. Be sure to warn them that should they even attempt anything on your big day, they will be removed by force if necessary. If you think they would anyway, uninvite them, but be vocal about why. Does your cousin want to pretend she's the one marrying your fiancé? Does she want to borrow your groom too? She doesn't have a partner waiting for her at the ends of the aisle. And if she does want to pretend she's marrying your fiancé, that's an insane request. I'm just going to put this out there. It sounds like this is more for your aunt and not her sick daughter. Poor lady wants to see her child getting married on your dime. Last week marked the anniversary of my brother's wife's passing. Coincidentally, on the same day my daughter was born. My wife and I have been planning her first birthday party for weeks, and the entire family was looking forward to it, especially given that she's the first grandchild and niece. Understanding the significance of the day for my brother, I checked in with him beforehand. He mentioned not planning anything special to honor his late wife, expressing concern about stealing the spotlight from my daughter's celebration. I reassured him that it was important for him to commemorate his feelings on this significant day. He chose not to attend and attended my daughter's party instead. Fast forward to the day of the party. The family was busy setting up, and my brother started silently crying, the intensity of which seemed to increase progressively. When my sister asked him what was wrong, he shared that seeing everyone celebrate on a day that held personal sadness for him was difficult. We all tried our best to comfort him. As the party went on, my brother's mood didn't change. Multiple times he managed to bring up his late wife's passing to my friends, detailing the heartbreak of losing her on the same day, and also sharing the details of her passing. While the kids were playing and everyone else was having a good time, my brother seemed stuck in his grief, casting a shadow over the celebration. Frustrated and feeling the party's mood dampened, I approached him and told him to leave if he couldn't be positive and enjoy the moment. He left upset. After the party, my mom confronted me, saying it was cruel to ask him to leave. According to her, I'm the idiot because he wasn't bothering anyone and just grieving. I feel he was being negative the entire time and making the party about him. But after what my mother said, I kind of feel terrible about asking him to leave. Am I the idiot? Wow, you are the idiot because you could have handled that more tactfully. Stuff gets complicated, and he probably thought, and wrongly, that your daughter's party would have been a helpful distraction. Or maybe you just couldn't bear the idea of being alone that day and made the best bad choice. We don't really know. Either way, instead of telling him to go, you could have told him it was okay for him to leave. He didn't have to stay if he didn't want to. You could have invited him to a private room for a moment. You could have sent one of the relatives to take him aside and sort him out. There's a dozen ways you could have done it without kicking him out. Yeah, you are the idiot. Your approach was awful. Yep, brother wants to be around people when he's alone and wants to be alone when he's around people. My guess is you made sure he'll choose the latter when it comes to you. Congrats. By the way, the only one-year-old birthday parties I've ever attended are my own children's. What a waste of time. And your brother showed up anyway. I disagree. Everyone's the idiot here. According to Mom, I'm the idiot because he wasn't bothering anyone and was just grieving. It sounds like he was bothering people though, having to be comforted by family members, repeatedly bringing up his wife's death, including details of it. He really should have left on his own accord, since it was too much for him to handle. My wife, Lisa, 29, and I, 30 male, have been married for 2 years. We both work and have no kids. Recently, Lisa's dog, Mango, our dog now, But Lisa's had Mango for a decade before we met, needed surgery that cost about $7,000, which made money pretty tight for us. I took out a pet care loan for a significant portion of the surgery under my name. If we pay it off in a year, we won't have interest, so we made a monthly budget to get it paid off within 1 year, and we've been paying it out of our joint account. Also, recently, my younger brother Johnny, 27, who has a history of addiction and mental health issues, reached out to me asking for a $2,000 loan because he needed legal fees for a custody battle with his baby mama. In the last few years, whenever he asks for money, everyone in my family refuses because it'll go to sugar. But this last year, he's been clean and able to hold down a job. I care about him, and he's had a really hard childhood compared to the rest of the siblings. So I get why he ended up the way he did and want to help him this time. Johnny said he'd pay me back, but I have a rule of never expecting it back when I give money to family, which I rarely do. I decided to take on a bunch of extra shifts at work during the last month and made enough money to send to him. I had some left to add to our monthly pet loan payment. I told Lisa the plan, thinking she'd be happy we could help Johnny out and also have some additional funds towards the pet loan payments. But she was angry that I was sending money to John when it all could go towards the loan. The way I see it, we already have a monthly budget for the loan, and we can pay it off in time without interest. I know that Mango is ours now, but technically that's my stepdog, for which I'm assuming responsibility because I love Lisa. When we found out how much Mango's surgery would cost, everyone advised us to put her down because she's also very old. But we went ahead with the surgery without thinking twice because Lisa loves Mango, and both our paychecks are going towards paying off her surgery. Meanwhile, I worked extra hours on my own to help my brother out so we could pay legal fees to be able to see his son. I told Lisa that if she wanted to pay off the pet loan earlier than the pre-planned schedule, I'd take on more shifts at work this month too. But Lisa just seemed angry that I would want to help Johnny at all. I don't understand why she expects us not to think twice about a $7,000 pet bill to save our 14-year-old dog, but is upset when I want to send $2,000 to my brother so we can see his child. I sent Johnny the money, and I'm sleeping on the couch now for that. But I don't think I did anything that outrageous. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot, not for wanting to help your brother, but you should not have given him the money directly. You should have paid it directly to his lawyer or whatever organization he's using. I can see where your wife is leaning towards a bill she knows you both have, rather than believing that your brother will be using the money as he states. You just handed him one heck of a temptation. That's exactly my thought. Directly pay the agency providing the service. An influx of cash can be a trigger that ends sobriety. Household finances have to be agreed upon. You agreed to the pet loan. She disagrees with the $2,000 gift, since you don't expect it back. Dude, that amount of money should have been a conversation between you and your wife before agreeing to help your brother. I understand you want to help and love him, but you and your wife are a team. I disagree. OP is not the idiot. I think giving a person who's 1 year sober and trying to better himself is at least as wise as taking out a loan for a dog who's 14. I know people have a huge soft spot for dogs and a disdain for people with addiction, but OP has good intentions. Also, he's paying it all himself by picking up extra shifts specifically for this purpose. It's not like he's using their shared money. He can also stick to their originally outlined payment schedule. I just don't see the idiot territory here.